has been reduced. Effective 1st July 2025, the duty will be $2 per kilogram or 35%, whichever is higher, down from $3 per kilogram or 35%, whichever is higher. In addition, the import duty on garments has been reduced to $2.5 per kilogram or 35%, whichever is higher, from $3.5 down from 3 or 35%, whichever is higher, or 35. Public debt. Madam Speaker, the stock of public debt is projected at $31.5 billion, equivalent to shillings 116 trillion by the end of June 2025. Of this, external debt accounts for $15.49 billion, equivalent to shillings 56.3 trillion, and domestic debt $16 billion, equivalent to 59.77 trillion. As a ratio of GDP, our public debt is estimated at 51.26%, which is consistent with the Charter of Fiscal Responsibility. Madam Speaker, Uganda's debt is sustainable and is projected to remain so in the medium to the long term. The debt has financed investments that support private sector growth by providing requisite infrastructure. Over the last 10 years, the areas which public debt has financed, including integrated transport infrastructure, 29.3%, electric housing and urban development, 3%, and development of industrial parks, 2%. To maintain public debt sustainability, government is implementing the following actions. 1, domestic revenue mobilization to increase revenue collection and reduce borrowing. 2, mobilization of more concessional financing from international financial institutions such as the World Bank, IMF, African Development Bank, Islamic Development Bank, BADEA, etc. 3, implementation of saving initiative, where Ugandans will invest in government securities using mobile money. Now, I want to conclude. Madam Speaker, I know I have tired you. Madam Speaker, in conclusion, has taken off. Can I repeat? Madam Speaker, in conclusion, Uganda's economy has taken off. When I did this thing, people started it. We know what we are doing, man. The economic fundamentals, GDP growth, price stability, currency stability, jobs, export, FDI receipts are in good shape and highly competitive regionally and globally. GDP growth, price stability, currency stability, jobs, export, FDI receipts are in good shape and are highly competitive regionally and globally. We have met the criteria for graduation from the category of low development countries. Poverty and inequality have just hold on. We have met the criteria for graduation from category of low LDCs. Poverty and inequality have reduced. Listen to this. Poverty and inequality have reduced significantly. Our deliberate onslaught on the subsistence economy has resulted in cutting the number of Ugandans working for only the stomach by our scientists and digital transformation, Uganda is indeed unstoppable. Unstoppable. Mwandibadde mukuba mu ngalo nammwe temumpadde maanyi. This budget, therefore, is for all Ugandans who are ready to create wealth. Fellow countrymen and women, take full advantage of the innumerable opportunities contained in this budget. Innumerable opportunities in this budget. To those still in a subsistence economy, the PDM and other wealth creation funds have been availed to support you to join the money economy in any of the 4 sectors: commercial agriculture, industry, services, or ICT. To the private sector, the 10-fold growth strategy presents many opportunities. To the youth, this budget offers opportunities to acquire more skills, access finance, innovate and develop new and better products. The budget also contains huge investments in sports, particularly to upgrade the facilities in preparation for CHAN and AFCON 27. To those in the creative industry, the NRM government has fulfilled its promise to provide you with a revolving fund, acquire a home for you, and enact a copyright law.
Hey, how's that New Year's resolution going?
What are you talking about?
You know, that YouTube channel you say you're gonna start?
Well, yeah, I'd like to, but editing's really hard, and coming up with a thumbnail stresses me out, and thinking of content ideas.
I don't do any of that. I use TubeBuddy.
What?
TubeBuddy. It does everything for you. SEO optimization, helps you with your thumbnail, video topic planner.
Well, I have ideas.
Yeah, but TubeBuddy gives you
active life. Take full advantage of the opportunities to make money and live a productive life. To the women and mothers of our nation, the budget has provided funds to improve your health, to ensure that your children are born in safe hands, are immunized, sleep under mosquito net, drink clean water, safe water, and are educated in nearby school for free. The budget has also allocated billions of support to your businesses. However, small to graduate. Let me repeat this. The increase in GDP represents a larger demand for intermediate goods and services among businesses. With a larger economy, government revenue will increase. Money is coming, and so with the size of government contracts to private sector. To the investor and our partners in development, this budget guarantees peace and security, ease the taxes, and the tolerable administration of justice. In Uganda, we protect the private property, enforce contracts, and repay our debts. To the youth, this budget offers opportunities to acquire more skills, access finance, innovate and develop new and better products. The budget also contains huge investments in sports, particularly to upgrade the facilities in preparation for CHAN and AFCON 27. To those in the creative industry, manipulation by self-interested individuals and groups, take full advantage of the opportunities to make money and live a productive life. Make money. To the women and mothers of this nation, the budget has provided funds to improve your health, to ensure that your children are born in safe hands, are immunized, sleep under a mosquito net, drink clean water, safe water, and are educated in a nearby school for free. The budget has also allocated billions to support your businesses, however small, to graduate into sustainable businesses. Persons with a disability and other vulnerable persons, wherever you are in this country, the budget offers several social safety nets, not only to shield you from poverty, but also to ensure that you can be productive and begin to live a decent life. To our cultural leaders, this budget has fulfilled His Excellency the President's promise of enhancing government support for your operations. For the religious leaders, the budget has provided funding to support functions of Interreligious Council. I now appeal to you to support mobilization of people for wealth creation and implementation of government programs. To the gallant men and women in uniform who are serving in ULPDF, in the Uganda police, in the Uganda prisons, and the intelligence services, this budget contains money to improve your welfare and capabilities. Continue to serve your country and keep it as safe as you have always done. Happy belated Heroes Day. I have adequately provided resources to ensure elections go on successfully by ensuring peace, security, law and order, and availability of all required equipment and documents. As we go about the electoral process, I implore all political actors to observe peaceful engagement and avoid distracting wealth creators. Madam Speaker, as I step off this podium, because the people are tired, but it was inevitable. I could not have abridged this speech. Madam Speaker, as I step off this podium, I would like to reiterate His Excellency President's call to all Ugandans to embrace wealth creation. We have a wonderful country. Those of you who have not traveled around the world, you don't know. But we know Uganda is God, when He was creating Uganda, I don't know what our ancestors had done. I think they did very good things. We have got good weather. You think I could have put on a suit here in some other places? We have rainfall, although we are making a problem by cutting trees. You can grow any type of food here. You can eat whatever you want to eat here in Uganda. And we continue crying and poverty. Government has given you all the money that you should take to take it in your enterprises. Please, you excuse me to quarrel when I come to this when I talk, wanting to emphasize of the beauty of this country, I become emotional. Will you excuse me? No wars, systems are around. If you are somebody has done something wrong to you, the courts, the chief is here. Hey. And we want to live to 100 years. Have you heard? Me, I'm aiming with my president 100 years. Have you heard? I am 82 now. You can see. Okay, Madam Speaker, as I step off this podium, I would like to reiterate His Excellency the President call to all Ugandans to embrace wealth creation, but also to embrace what I've said. I dedicate this budget to all the wealth creators, particularly the youth and women. Madam Speaker, I humbly beg to move.
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister. And by extension, His Excellency the President, who is the Minister of Finance, for clarity of delivery of the budget speech. Honorable members, you will be availed with the text of the budget speech in the due course. I want to urge you to take note of the government's budgetary priorities and relate the matters to the coming financial year. Next item. Next item.
Remarks by His Excellency the President of the Republic of Uganda.
Honorable members and distinguished guests, I now take the opportunity to invite His Excellency the President to make his remarks to crown the budget speech. And remember, our rules of procedure state that when the President is making a speech, it must be heard in silence. Your Excellency, you're most welcome, and kindly talk to the members of Parliament and by extension, the nation.
Her Excellency the Vice President, the Right Honorable Speaker of Parliament, all the other leaders, honorable members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen. The long speech of the Minister, I would want just to emphasize for you I'm trying to see where it is here in the speech. There's paragraph 11 when you get the speech, where he informs us that the size of the Ugandan economy is now $61 billion by the exchange rate method, and $174 billion by the PPP method, purchasing power parity. And because of that, and given our population, which is about 46 million, 49 something, we are now no longer an LDC, the least developed countries. We are now a lower middle income country. In 1986, the size of the GDP was $3.9 billion. So you can see the economy has grown more than 20 times. So I thought you should mark that, because in a long speech like this, You may This is paragraph 140 in paragraph 140 in his speech, where he said, he told you of the economic fundamentals. That's a very good summary. And he said, Madam Speaker, in conclusion, Uganda's economy has taken off. The economic fundamentals, and what are those fundamentals? GDP growth. Is the economy growing or not? Price stability. Are the prices stable or not? Currency stability. Is the currency stable or not? Jobs. Are jobs being created or not? Export earnings. Are the export earnings going up or not? And then finally, FDI receipts. The foreign direct investment. Are they coming in or not? I thought that you should note that. Now, going to my own speech. You remember last time I promised that I would address two issues. During the State of the Nation address, I told you that today, as part of the budget speech, I will address two issues. And these are the East African Federation and corruption. I will do exactly that. However, I will dissect the corruption into two. First of all, corruption for getting money through crooked ways as one type of corruption, and political corruption through the use of money to get political support, not based on principles or policies. Politics is about principles and policies. That's what you should be telling the public to choose from. My policies, his policies, that, you the public, you choose. Bring in money, you are polluting the Let me start with the more important question of the political federation of East Africa and possible other federations in other parts of Africa. This was a goal Marcus Garvey, Sylvester Williams, and others. By the mid-1900s, new actors had come on the scene in the persons of Jomo Kenyatta, Kwame Nkrumah, Julius Nyerere, Sekou Toure of Guinea, Modibo Keita, and others. But if you go back, you will find that by 1900, the whole of Africa had shamefully been colonized because our egocentric and incompetent kings had failed to defend us, and instead we are busy fighting fratricide wars among us. At that time, when we were colonized, the slogan for survival was, in quotes, Uhuru na Umoja, independence and unity. That's what we were saying. We unite, we fight for freedom, independence, and then after, we unite to get strength. That was the slogan. Starting with 1912, the Africans in South Africa, these were, number one, the emergence of the socialist camps of nations in the form of the Soviet Union in 1917, China in 1949, and others. These huge countries were taken over by people who did not believe in colonialism. These were the communists. So this was a new factor. As we were fighting for our freedom, this new factor came on the scene. And the second factor were the fratricidal wars, fratricidal inter-imperialist wars of 1914 to 1918 and 1939 to 1945 among the imperialists. The imperialists were now fighting over us. Who will control which one? You know, those imperialists had divided us up, shared us like a cake because of our incompetent kings here. Came, sat in Berlin, this is for you, this is for you, this is for you. Then there was a new country called Germany, which had become united a short while before that. They wanted to start a war. Say, you are cheating us. We also want a share with the colonies. Then they said, please don't start a war, Bismarck, please. Let's give you some of the properties. You take Tanganyika, Rwanda, Burundi, Namibia, Cameroon, and so on. But by the end of the century, Germany was saying, you have cheated me. I also need more slaves. I need more colonies. That's how their wars started, fighting over us. These two factors, on the one hand, meant that the worldwide anti-colonial movement, including the African anti-colonial movement, could receive solidarity from those socialist countries. And on the other hand, the imperialist countries had weakened themselves in the process of their greed for world domination. So as they were fighting over us into themselves, which was good for us. The worldwide anti-colonial movement, on account of these three factors, the three factors are our resistance, number one, number two, the emergence of the socialist countries which were supporting us, and number three, the mutual weakening of the imperialists among themselves. The worldwide anti-colonial movement, on account of these three factors, started scoring strategic victories with the independence of India in 1947, Indonesia in 1945, the defeat of the Kuomintang traitors in China, 1949, etc. Amazingly, the imperialists tried in many cases to maintain colonial control even after these catastrophes. The French tried to recognize Indochina, Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos until the Vietnamese defeated them at Dien Bien Phu in 1954. The French were defeated in Algeria. The British faced the Mau Mau armed resistance in Kenya. By 1963, 36 African countries had achieved independence, uhuru, so we had achieved uhuru. It is these countries that founded the Organization of African Unity at Addis Ababa. There was, however, another almost 20 African countries that were still under colonial rule. The African Summit gave an ultimatum to the imperialists to give independence to the whole of Africa peacefully, or they would be ejected by force. People don't know this history. They just run around, but if you don't know this, you can make a lot of mistakes. So the OAU meeting in 1963 gave an ultimatum in Mozambique. Amilcar Cabral and his colleagues had defeated the Portuguese army in Guinea-Bissau. Agostinho Neto had defeated the Portuguese army in Angola. By 1980, Robert Mugabe and Zanla, their army, had defeated Ian Smith in Zimbabwe. 1990, Namibia got independence, and in 1994, the African majority defeated the white racists in South Africa. 5 centuries of Africa's shame of the slave trade and colonialism should have ended then. This is where we need to really examine ourselves, because we achieved victory both by peaceful method and by war. Had to diagnose the problem. In that process, we established the 3 historical missions and the 4 ideological principles. To establish the missions and the principles, we would start with a question. Question number 1 was, do the Africans need, deserve, and are they entitled to prosperity like other peoples in the world, or are they not so entitled? That's the question we would ask. Are the Africans entitled, and do they deserve prosperity like all the other people in the world? If the answer is yes, the next question would be, where does prosperity come from? Can prosperity sustainably come from begging? Because you remember the issue of aid. Can you get prosperity through aid? Our answer was no. Prosperity can only come from producing a good or a service, which is what Honorable Kasej is saying, by being a wealth creator, producing a good or a service by an individual, a family, a company, etc., and selling it sustainably with a chibaro. A chibaro is the assessing the profitability. In that way, you will get income and solve your problems. That, however, raises another question. Who will sustainably buy our goods or our services reliably with predictability? Because you can see what's happening in the world. The other time, you people, you said, well, we don't want our children to be homosexuals. Our children, we didn't say other people's children. We don't want our children to be homosexuals. Oh, and some of our friends who had given us market access took us off their AGOA list. Imagine. So, how can you rely on such a person for business? Today, you trade with him. Tomorrow, he stops you because of your internal policy, not even anything affecting him. So, the third question, who will sustainably buy our goods or services reliably and with predictability? When we started the African tribes, including my own, the Banyankwere Bahororo, we discovered that intra-tribal trade is either limited or completely absent. Why? It is because these communities sometimes produce similar products. The Banyankwere Bahororo, for instance, all have milk, beef, bananas, etc. A does not buy from B and vice versa. Therefore, identity, being one tribe, does not necessarily solve the problem of prosperity. Happily, we discovered a ready solution, and this was Uganda Amos Kaguta, my father, who had cattle he had inherited from his ancestors. Hence, those cattle were Enshugi, the cattle of Jaja, inherited from ancestors. You could therefore sell some of them and pay my school fees. The problem, however, was that there was neither a single Munyankwere Mhororo cattle trader at that time, nor was there a developed beef market in the area of Ntungamo. You know where Ntungamo is? You know where Ntungamo is, you people? You may not find it on the Uganda map. You may not find it. So Ntungamo, we had neither traders of cattle, nor did we have a meat market at that time. That is how the second category of rescuers came in. The people who rescued me to go to school. These were two Baganda, one of them called Warusimbi Mpanga, and another one called Buchenya. Buchenya, the Banyankwere were calling him Buchenya, but the Baganda would call him Bukenya. Now that of Buchenya has a grandson who is a big fellow now in the government. I think he's in the Equal Opportunities Commission. If that Munyankwere Muganda is here, he can come and they see how Banyankwere Baganda look like. Banyankwere is the Baganda. Is that boy here? If he's here, let him come and they see him here. And share for the Kirembe Copper Mines workforce. So it was these three people who supported my education. Warusimbi would buy the cows to bring them to Kampala. Buchenya would take them to the small Mbarara market. Shea would take the cows to Kirembe market. Even at that time, the complementarity among the tribes was becoming clear. But even in the pre-colonial times, the interzones trade had become clear. Textiles, Emianda, were coming from the coast in Zanzibar. The glass beads in Kwanzi were from the same source, and so were the guns. Ivory, Emino, however, was coming from the interior of the African continent, and so was the salt, the backcloth, the hose, etc. It is this historical mission of the need for prosperity that led us to discover the first ideological principle of our movement, of the NRM, as the minister was saying, patriotism, love Uganda. Why? It is because you need it for your prosperity as a market, among other advantages. However, learning from the history of other countries and also seeing what is happening in Uganda once it settled down and started recovery, we discovered that the internal market is not enough. As we speak today, Uganda has got surplus of milk, maize, bananas, beef, sugar, cement, steel products of certain types, etc., as the minister was telling you here. Where do we sell all these? This is when the NRM asked the Ugandans the following questions. Number one, have you heard of East Africa? Because you are stuck with your products. Have you heard of East Africa? Because you are busy with the tribes. Some people are telling you, we, as Banyankore, we, as Baganda, we, as Acholi, some of those pharaohs are busy telling you about the tribes. If nga abasoga bene, we are this one, are this one. But why don't we solve the, if those are enough, why do we have a problem of surplus milk, surplus sugar, surplus this? And this is where the NRM said, have you heard of East Africa? Have you heard of Africa? Why don't you check whether they can buy what we produce and also buy what they produce? Indeed, as I speak now, East Africa and Africa are already buying parts of our surpluses. Otherwise, these sectors of the economy would have collapsed by now. That is how the NRM identified the second ideological principle of Pan-Africanism. Pan-Africanism. Love Africa. Why? It is because you need it we need it for our prosperity. This realization of the need for bigger markets was not only clear to the NRM, others before us had realized this. Germany was not one country until 1871. German-speaking people were divided into 39 kingdoms of Prussia, Saxony, Bavaria, etc. However, there was a strong business group in Prussia known as Junkers. It is written Junkers, but they pronounce it Junkers, that saw the importance of a united German market. Working with Bismarck, they pushed the Pan-Germanism agenda, the unity of the Germans. France, by 1789, had been a united kingdom for a long time. There were, however, internal taxes between the provinces of France known as Gabelle. Those provinces were fiefdoms of the princes of those areas. The rising French middle class, the bourgeoisie, could not accept this. Indeed, the removal of these internal taxes were part of the grievances of the French Revolution. On these two ideological principles of patriotism and Pan-Africanism, we added socio-economic transformation and democracy. This was all to achieve historical mission number one, prosperity for the African people through market integration. We are glad by 1980, the African leaders had started seeing the importance of market integration as part of the Lagos Plan of Action. When the NRM took power, we worked with the Wazee, Mzee Mwinyi, Mzee Mkapa, and Mzee Moi to revive the East African community that was relaunched on the 30th of November, 1999. The East African community has now expanded to incorporate Rwanda, Burundi, South Sudan, DRC, and Somalia. In addition, we have got COMESA and the CFTA, the Continental Free Trade Area. We need to remove all the trade barriers and develop infrastructure to facilitate this trade. However, we also need to ensure that countries that are beginning to come up are assisted. We don't want a common market where some countries benefit, others lose. No, it's very dangerous. The countries which are coming up must be assisted so that they also trade equitably. We should never allow trade imbalances among member states to persist. This market integration will address the historical mission of prosperity. However, we had also identified the second historical mission as that of strategic security. How can Africa ensure that never again will its people be threatened by anybody having gone through the 5 centuries of the slave trade, colonialism, and neocolonialism? Economic integration, if it is fully implemented, will address the issue of prosperity. However, during the Second World War, the developed countries of Holland, Belgium, Denmark, France, Norway, etc., became victims of German aggression. They are being developed notwithstanding. It was the Soviet Union and later the USA and UK that defeated the hegemonic Hitler. Even we, the Africans, 500,000 of Africans, took part in that war, as did 2.5 million Indians who took part in that war to save those countries, France and Holland and all that. The highly developed Israel, in terms of technology, would find it difficult to survive in that zone without the cover of the United States of America. Some actors in the world talk of achieving superiority in the 4 dimensions: land forces, air forces, at sea, the Navy, and in space. Where does this leave Africa? Are we going to exist or not exist with the permission of others? Are we only to thrive with the permission of others? Coming to multidimensional strategic security, only 4 countries have been to the moon. These are USA, Russia, China, and India recently. Can Uganda manage a serious space program even when it becomes the first world country? As we tried to answer that question, there was already an answer given by our elders before independence. This was Uhuru na Umoja, freedom and unity. The present weaknesses in Africa are partly due to the mistake of arrivism, where the leaders prefer to remain big fishes in small ponds. It was only Mwalimu Nyerere of Tanganyika and Mzee Karume of Zanzibar that consummated the economic and political integration of the 2 countries to create Tanzania that has been a great success. Recently, the Union of Tanzania celebrated 60 years. We congratulate our brothers and sisters of Tanzania. Mbakwere kumungalo. Economic and political integration, where possible, are the correct answer to the question of prosperity and strategic security. It handles the 2 missions. In 1963, we were about to achieve the political federation of East Africa. There is a picture which I will give some of the, you can see it there. After my speech. But that was 1963, Uganda, August. They were saying federation this year, Federation of East Africa this year. That's what they were saying. Thank you. You can see the declaration, that declaration by our leaders. However, along the way, some of them developed cold feet. That is why Mwalimu Nyerere and Mzee Karume must be hailed as some of the most devoted Africans that have ever lived. You can be sure that if that federation had taken off, so many of the problems that afflicted us could have been avoided. Certainly, Amin would never have taken power in Uganda. If that federation was there, Idi Amin would never have taken power in Uganda here. Maybe the problems of Rwanda and Burundi could have been handled differently. The problems of South Sudan and Somalia could possibly have been handled differently, as would have been the problems of Congo. Why do I say this? Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania, under one political authority, would have been so strong that their voice in these matters would have been decisive. I remember, for instance, our leaders then took a stand on the issue of Congo in 1965. Soon, however, the states started taking divergent positions, which would not have been the case if they were under one political authority. We must again salute Mwalimu Nyerere and Tanzania, because without the support of much of Africa, except for Zambia, Botswana, Algeria, Nasser's Egypt, and Guinea-Conakry, they were able to be a reliable rear base for the anti-colonial armed struggle that raged in Southern Africa from 1962 to 1994, when South Africa achieved freedom. It is a pity that after victory, we only got Uhuru, independence, and not Umoja, unity, especially political integration. The third historical mission we identified was the Undugu, brotherhood of the 1.5 billion African people. These people belong to only 4 linguistic groups: the Niger-Congo, the Bantus and the Kwa, the Nilo-Saharan, the Nilotics, the Cushitic and the Sudanic, the Afro-Asiatic, Arabic, Amharic and Tigrinya, and the Khoisan, the group in South Africa. Recently, I had a delegation from Congo, but we did not have a French translator. However, there was a Rutoro speaker from Ituri province in Congo, Tebasima Atenyi. I therefore spoke in Runyoro, and he translated to the rest in French. This was just like 2 weeks ago when I had a group from Congo. I was speaking in Runyoro, and he was translating to those people in French. Apart from similar Interakistian, Bantu, and Nilotic dialects, we have the good luck of Swahili, which is a neutral, non-tribal dialect developed by our ancestors when they met at the East African coast to conduct business. Therefore, the third historical mission is a question, in quotes: why can't the responsible political actors use the Undugu, the brotherhood, similarities or linkages of these people to create units that support the other 2 historical missions of prosperity and strategic security? You don't hear anybody talking, this is political class, talking about I don't know what they talk about on TV. I normally once in a while watch, talking nothing. Da, 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 da. How can you have a political class lost? Because when we were young, we were very much involved. Whatever happened in the whole of Africa, we were involved. In 1968, I went to Mozambique, to the liberated zone with some other students. I was not a Mozambican. Baleka ngabi wasande kola, niboko nibiyota sande kola, numbers matigari mugo. Ani ana avunulecho wanange. They left undone what they ought to have done. They left undone what they left undone what they ought to have done. They did what they ought not to have done, and there is no truth in them. That's what it says in English. With these 3 historical missions and the 4 ideological principles, we were able to shape our strategy vis-à-vis Africa. The movement, when you talk of movement, you are talking about the 3 historical missions and 4 ideological principles. Not about me. You are not important. Elect me. Elect you for what? Because you are handsome, because you are what? What medicine do you have for us? What medicine do you have for us? We need a medicine for our problems. With these 3 historical missions and the 4 ideological principles, we were able to shape our strategy vis-à-vis Africa. Whatever we did was guided by this. Why did we tactically work with Obote? But when Amin came, we decided to fight him. Because we saw Obote, we were trying to see how we can move him, beg him, see how to move him to our program. But Amin was off the point. So we said, Kwenda, wait, talk. You cannot interfere with our destiny. We have a journey. We are on a journey. You stood in front of us, tunakutoa. The strategy that we always commend, this strategy we always commend to our supporters, is to work for economic integration of the whole of Africa, so as to support prosperity of the African people and support the additional political integration in the parts of Africa where it is feasible by creating political federations, such as the Political Federation of East Africa. Mwalimu Nyerere and ourselves diverged a bit from Mzee Nkrumah and Muammar Gaddafi, who are talking of a continental government of the whole of Africa. We do not think that such a target of a continental government of the whole of Africa was either feasible or even desirable, because the whole of Africa does not possess enough similarities and linkages to be cohesive, a necessary prerequisite for political integration. East Africa is, and with the use of Swahili, can be very cohesive. The whole of Africa should be one common market. Apart from the Niger-Congo linguistic group that has got a lot of similarities, there are also linkages with, for instance, the Nilo-Saharan groups of languages. This is how, amazingly, I discovered that the Somali word for cow is Saa. It is the very word that most of the Bantu dialects in the Great Lakes use to describe the cow dung, not any other dung. So what the Somalis call a cow is what we call cow dung here. But you can see the linkage. There are a lot of linkages with the Nilotic dialects that we do not have to go into here. It is this belief in the three historical principles and three historical missions and four ideological principles that enabled the student movement of the 1960s to metamorphose into the armed Fronasa that fought Amin and eventually the NRA-NRM. We rejected the sectarian politics of identity of religion, tribes, and gender chauvinism. By 1986, by the force of 20,000 NRA fighters, backed by millions of civilians that were only propelled by conviction, not by any mercenary interest. The majority of the NRA-UPDF have maintained this. That is why between 1971 and 2021, the NRA-UPDF was fighting for no pay or low pay. Owing to death of some of our supporters, from natural causes mainly, we started getting some corrupt elements, but a minority. These are a minority and are easier to identify and isolate. The spirit of voluntarism was also strong among the civilians. That is why the National Resistance Council, for instance, we are getting a low salary, but we are content. When we came to the Constituent Assembly, we improved the pay, knowing that it was a temporary parliament. However, subsequent parliaments made two mistakes. One was to increase their salary and allowances, thereby departing from the spirit of sacrifice that had been the hallmark of the NRA, UPDF, NRM. Secondly, a group known as YPA, Young Parliamentarians Association, opportunistically and for cheap popularity, started going around the country and conducting fundraising for some cheap popularity projects, such as schools, etc. I warned them, but they could not listen. I did not want to precipitate a crisis with them when we had problems of Rwanda, Congo, South Sudan, etc. This is, however, why I rejected the call to raise the pay of the president. I said the president will never get a high salary as long as I'm in government and as long as the economy is still growing. Comrades, it's now time to see how to correct these two mistakes. This is because it led the population to believe that the political leaders have a lot of money and must share it with the voters in the form of bribes and endless fundraisings. Although the MPs gave themselves a lot of money, it is not enough to meet these indisciplined demands for bribes and fundraisings. Hence, they end up with debts, and some have run from the constituencies. I hear some of them are IDPs. Internally displaced persons. The government, through the budgets, is the one that can help the people to solve their problems. Programs like NADS, Operation Wealth Creation, PDM, Emioga, etc., have already shown that they can liberate people from poverty. You can see it. You can see it. There's a man from Kamwenje. If you can show me that Kamwenje man, you people, my group, the man in Kamwenje, the man of coffee. The man of coffee. Uh-huh. Is that the one? That's another one. The one of Kamwenji was. What has happened? Sabotage? That one was interesting because he used the nods and get him, when you get him, put him,
Amazina ni akole na Julius, a retired teacher.
That's the one.
Indi Kahunje Town Council, Rwenkuba Ward, ya Mgonira Ser. Ejifamu ya akole na and family enterprises, elia ha acres makumi atano. Hanu maziroho emyaka mingi iri kuyenga makumi ashatu. Kuko mu gihe myaka makumi ashatu emyaka yo kubanza mingi nkandi umuhinji w'ibicori nkandi ntinya cyo w'ibicori bingi munonga konga kuna ukutandika no his excellency ya ari na PMA plan for modernization of agriculture nibwo natandika kukunda ideas ize then of recent kwa jero mu 4-acre model then nibwo natandika tinkaza guma mu bicori aboko mu bicori nkampinga acres and acres mu hamuherwa byona ishanga nyire mu katani kayishatu ukuziguza ishanga nyine mu ka millionemu amago.
The important thing is that this man moved into coffee and all those things. When we were with the NADS, PMA, there was something we were calling PMA, Plan for Modernization of Agriculture, which was like NADS. Then he started growing coffee. So what I'm saying here, the government, through the budget, is the one that can help the people to solve their problems. Programs like NADS, Operational Wealth Creation, PDM, MYOGA, ETC, have already shown that they can liberate people from poverty. The current coffee boom was on account of the government scientists who developed the improved clonal coffee, different from the old variety that the people in Bushenyi had abandoned for the dairy industry. Now, I had some people is half Muganda, half Munyankole. Tell them in English.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, the President. My name is Sirwaji Habib, a grandson of Bukenya, a very close friend to His Excellency, the President. I am privileged, Your Excellency, that my grandparents migrated and found themselves in Mbarara. So for us, we are actually very more fluent in Unyankore more than Luganda, although I'm called Sirwaji Habib. I thank Your Excellency for giving me an opportunity. Wafe Mbarara Katete.
Bajaja wagenda yodi.
Bajaja bagenda y'olukumi lwenda nsanvu era bakwata ettaka ddene nnyo.
Nsanvu.
1970.
No. This was in the 1950s.
Yes, anti kati, Your Excellency, ffe twabasanga, baatuzaalanga gye tuli. Ne baali balina ettaka ddene nnyo.
No, you go and find out from your parents if they are.
Thank you, Your Excellency.
Okay, again.
Thank you very much.
This was in the 50s. Your man number 70. So some people are saying that claiming coffee, this one, You remember there was a group called, the one we abolished, what was it called? The one we rationalized. UCDA. UCDA. They were saying, oh, we are the ones who developed coffee. So coffee was saved by NRM, working with the scientists. When we developed improved the Chrono coffee, which was yielding much more than the other coffee of the 1960s, 50s. To prove that, we had very, very important coffee growers in Bushenyi, people like Mukaira, like Chikuri, like others who were growing, Kekuruto, they were growing coffee. But because the coffee price collapsed in the 60s, I think, they abandoned and went to cows. Up to now, they are big dairy farmers. They had abandoned coffee. We are the ones who rescued coffee. So it is the government. The current coffee boom was on account of the government scientists who developed the improved Chrono coffee, different from the old variety that people in Bushenyi had abandoned for the dairy industry. The dairy industry in the cattle corridor, you can see it for yourself, what it is doing there. If you can show us people like Kavera, the one of Gomba. Can you show us Kavera of Gomba?
Okuva wano ku Gomba Next Generation Farm Institute era nga ye Gomba Next Generation Model Farm. Nze farm manager, farm eno yatandikibwa omwami Kalera Philip era nga yawangula empaka z'omulimi asinga 220 eziteekebwa Vision Group mu ggwanga lyonna. Farm eno yatandika omwaka gwa 2003 era nga ekigendererwa kyali kyakulaba tutya tuyinza okufuna mu byobulimi n'obulunzi. Twatandika nga tulunda ente ezaffe ennansi oba ze tuyita Enyankole paka mu mwaka gwa 2018 bwe twalaba nti ettaka lye twalina obunene bwalyo eka 405 amagoba ge twajjangamu otunulidde vali y'ettaka nga tegenkanankana na capital oyo ali mu ttaka. Twalaba nti bizinesi tekola ne tukyusa ne tudda mu okulima okw'ekibalo mu 2019 ne tutandika olunda ente ez'amata ez'omubiyumba, enkoko, kulima amatooke, emmwanyi, kulunda embizzi n'okuteekawo ettendekero lisomesa abasawo b'ebisolo n'abalimisa. Twatandika ettendekero lino erya Gomba Next Generation Farm Institute okutendeka abavubuka. Twakizuula nti abavubuka bangi baagala nnyo okwenyigira mu by'obulimi n'obulunzi naye nga babulamu obukugu obuli practical twandiyise hand zone. Nti twakizuula nti abavubuka bangi bafuluma mu matendekero ag'ebyobulimi n'obulunzi naye nga balina theory mungi naye ng'okukwatako okukola faama kikyayagala oba yekenyi kyayagala okwekolera nga tebakimanyi. Ekitufuula ab'enjawulo nti abaana baffe tubayigiriza nga bakolera ddala ekyo okugeza nti okuwa ssente okuzijjanjaba kuba faamu eriko ente 5 tegeeza ente ezo zibamala okusomerako. Enkoko nazo weeziri nnyingi zisukka 2,000, embizzi, emmwanyi eka 5 nti omwana ono byonna abikolera ddala. Tuli mu nkoko ez'amagi ze bayita layers. Fenno wano tulina enkoko ezisoba mu 2,000 mu kudda waggulu. Naye kansomese omuntu wange addala nfubuka munnange oyo gwe baalyako ssente z'empitirivu nti yali asobola olunda enkoko ez'amagi 1,000. Nti okuzimba ekiyumba eky'enkoko ez'amagi 1,000 weetaaga wakati w'obukadde 3 ku 5 okusinziira ki ky'oyagala. Kati nga wano ewange nkozesa ssente ntonotono ze twakozesa. Kati enkoko, obukoko obuto, okulya, eddagala, drinka, mwe ziriira ne mwe zinywera okutuuka ku level we zibiikira emyezi 4 n'ekitundu ku myezi 5 weetaaga miliyoni 18 ku miliyoni 2. Lwaki? Nti olumu emmere ebeerako ng'eguddemukko, olumu ng'eyambuseemukko. Sobola mbala nti miliyoni 18 ku 2. Bwe zituuka ku level eyo nga zitandise obiika, kiba kitegeeza zisobola okwebeezaawo ate naawe ne zikubeezaawo. Kakati mu mbeera eyo nga zitandise okubiika, tubala lunaku zirya kyenkana ki. Enkoko 1,000 zirya, buli nkoko erya grams 12. Kitegeeza enkoko 1,000 zirya kilo 12. Bw'ogenda obalaabalamu.
He will take long, but that is now, you hear how he started this modern farming in 2019, and he's earning quite a lot of money. So the coffee, the dairy industry, the poultry, the Karangara palm oil project, these are projects pushed by the government that have transformed people's lives, not petty money from MPs for fundraising or bribes. So this is suicide for nothing. The voters need to know that these practices of bribes and fundraising are overthrowing the voters' power. The voters, you are overthrowing your own power by electing people because they have given you money. Because then you are power to elect leaders that will work with the central government to solve the problems of the voters, such as infrastructure, supervised wealth funds that are being stolen by the parish chiefs, etc. Do not accept petty money from politicians and throw away your power to elect a leader that can kwemerera. Kwemerera is the Nyankwere word to supervise the money sent to you through the parish or to fight corruption in your area. Once we solve the problem of political corruption that has paralyzed the populist politicians, it will be easy to fight the corruption of the public servants. Why? It is because we have a reliable source for Okurega. Okurega is whistleblowing. These are the people, the victims of the corruption. The people who are the people who are deprived of these services, the population are the victims of the corruption. In the 1960s, we would go to the people. They had all the information. The big changes that are happening in Uganda are by the following actors. The National Resistance Army, UPDF, that liberated the country and has been ensuring peace ever since. The wealth creators in the 4 sectors of agriculture, manufacturing, services, and ICT. The government scientists that make innovations, and the responsible members of the political class that have been supporting the NRM programs. It is therefore not fair for some actors to spoil these successes. Some people say that they give bribes because Museveni is always giving the kaki to the singers or wrestlers, etc. President is the modern king. You are not kings.
Basa, I have another deposit I want to make on school fees.
Oh, already?
185.
But Daddy Darren, 10,000 shillings?
First right.
He gives the envelope because he has got a budget. He's president. I'm not president. Why do you want? Fundraising was and is premature. The head of the fundraising is Oxonda.
fundraising is, our word is oxonda, whereby you make small equal contributions, but by many contributors. In the 1950s, Mzee Kaguta sometimes would participate in Oxondera to contribute for Enjoga. Enjoga, a pot full of ruagwa, of banana alcohol. At that time, Enjoga, a pot full was 5 shillings. 5 people, it is really extortion, but it was instigated by the MPs who created the impression that they had the type of money when they did not have. Even the church leaders and other elders should ask those young mistake makers the following question. Naye mwana wange, esente zino zonna ozijja wa? That's what I would ask my people if I saw young people throwing around money. That is what a responsible parent should ask Omwana, son or daughter, or a muzukuru, grandchild, if he or she sees him or her throwing around money. The translation of that question is, my child, from where are you getting all this money that you are throwing around? The responsible parents should not accept stolen gifts from their children or mawanja from their children. So I thought this is what I wanted to comment on the issue of the political corruption and the other corruption. Now, the